Hi everybody, it's Harvard lawyer Lee. Well, the Johnny Depp versus Amber Heard jury deliberations have ended for today. The jury spent 2 hours on Friday and all day today deliberating, and we don't have an answer yet. But the jury did leave us a big, fat, juicy clue, and that's what I want to talk about today. They sent out a question. Now, questions are trial gold if you're an attorney because they're insight into what the jury is thinking. The hours that you spend waiting for a jury to come back are the longest hours of your life. It takes forever, it feels like. You've spent so much time and energy, and now you're waiting and you don't know what will happen. So a question is just hugely important. Everyone stands around, talks about it, thinks about it. So I want to invite you in to exactly what the lawyers in this case are doing. I guarantee you that Amber Heard's attorneys are clustered around the table going, "What do you think it meant?" And Johnny Depp's team, same thing. They're all speculating. What did the jury's question mean? What does it tell us about what the jury is thinking? So come on in, let's discuss that now. Sometimes you get a jury sending out a question and it's really clear what they mean. Sometimes it's so clear that the parties will immediately settle the case because it's very clear that the jury is leaning one way or another. But sometimes the question is pretty cryptic, and that's what's the case here. It's not really clear exactly what they mean, but I want to unpack it and see if we can figure it out. Well, let me give you a little context, and then I'll play the video of the judge reading out the question and then analyze it. First, the context. Now, remember that Johnny Depp said that Amber Heard defamed him with 3 statements she made in an op-ed in the Washington Post in 2018. The jury's question was about one of the 3 statements. Each one individually is claimed as defamation. Johnny Depp doesn't have to prove all 3 were defamatory, just one. The first 2 statements related to domestic abuse and abuse. But the third one was by far the most important. That was the headline of the Washington Post op-ed, online version. Now, the paper version was very different, but the headline was, "Amber Heard, I spoke up against sexual violence. From now on, I'll abbreviate that SV, and faced our culture's wrath." That's the one where Depp has the most chance of winning. I have said from my very first video that that one is different in nature because Amber Heard did not even allege SV back when she filed for her temporary restraining order, when she got the divorce. The first time she ever said that was after the Washington op-ed came out. At that point, she for the first time began to claim that. So I want to play the clip for you about what the jury asked and then talk about what it might mean.
Let's go. Let me just read into the record the question. It's basically in regards to number C, items 1 and 3, and number C is a jury instruction on the finding instruction for the online article title. The question is, does question number 3, the statement is false, pertain to the headline, "I spoke up against sexual violence and faced our culture's wrath," or does it pertain to the content of the statement, everything written in the op-ed? So I think the confusion came in this particular one because the statement in question is the title of the op-ed. So I think they're just confused as whether it's the whole op-ed or just the title is the statement. And it's clear that the title is the statement. So I was going to answer to say the title is the statement in question for number 3. Does that seem appropriate to everybody? All right. I will send that back.
So the jury asked, in regard to number C, items 1 and 3, does question number 3 pertain to the headline or the content of the statement, everything in the op-ed? So that's very cryptic. Let's try to unpack that and see if we can figure out, make any sense of that. Oh, while I'm thinking of it, please subscribe and also like the video. I'm going to be doing a lot more content like this and about other cases. I'm going to be talking about the Gabby Petito civil case next, for example. So let's look at what jury instruction C that the jury asked about was. Jury instruction C related specifically to the title of the online article, specific to that. And it tells the jury, you shall only return your verdict for Mr. Depp if you find he proved by the greater weight of evidence that, and it lists several different questions. Question 1 that they asked about was, Did Amber Heard make or publish it? Question number 3 that they asked about was whether it was a false statement. So let's kind of rephrase their question now that we know that. So the jury was saying, for this question about this one important SV allegation, the title, are you telling us that we look just at the title, or do we look at the whole article when we make our decision? Since they mentioned both questions 1 and question 3. Question 1 asked whether she made or published it, and then included the entire text of the statement. Question 3 asked, is it a false statement? Because if it's not, then that's a defense in a defamation claim like this one. If it's not false, then Amber Heard wins, because the only way a statement can be defamation is if it's false. Truth is a defense. So what the jury might be asking is, based on what you have asked us to do, Judge, do you want us to decide whether the whole article was false, or should we focus in on the headline? And we can read some tea leaves from that. There are several things that it could mean, one at least of which is very positive for Johnny Depp. It could mean that the jury is zeroing in on the question of whether or not Amber Heard made SV allegations, and whether or not that part of it was a fair and accurate, truthful representation. Because since she did not mention that until later in the game, they may be thinking, that part we don't believe. Maybe they believe other things, but that part we don't believe. That's possible that that's what they're asking. And they're asking the judge, can we just focus on that headline and decide whether that's false? Or do we have to look at the whole article, which overall we think was true? They can mean that as well. It could also mean that the jurors disagree, that they're trying to get to a narrower question. Some of the people think that it isn't something that they ought to respond to, that they can find was false, because they're looking at the whole article. So people who are trying to persuade them are saying, maybe we can just focus on the title, which we might all agree to. And so they've asked the judge, can we do that? Can we focus on the title? It's also possible, though, since both questions 1 and questions 3 were referenced in that the jury is also focused on whether Amber Heard made or published the article. Remember, Amber Heard says she did not make or publish it. She says that title, now I maybe did the article, yes, but I did not make or publish the title. The Washington Post added that. I had nothing to do with it, and so I'm not responsible for it. Johnny Depp's team has responded, well, you retweeted it, so you took ownership of it then. You had the title and everything when you retweeted it. So you could have said, no, that part's false. You didn't, so you're responsible.